Today we are going to talk about arrhythmias. Okay, we are going to divide the course in 4 parts. The first part we are going to talk about physiology. We are going to talk about the action potential, and we are going to talk about the conduction system of the heart. Then in the second part we will talk about the mechanism of arrhythmias. In the third part we will talk about the channelopathies, and in the fourth part we will talk about anti-arrhythmic drugs. So I highly encourage you to go by order so that we can understand everything and we don't have to memorize anything. So we are going to begin with the first part, the physiology. So to start, we are going to perform a brief draft of the heart. Here is the right atrium, the left atrium. Here we have the right ventricle. Here we are going to have the left ventricle. So now we are going to represent the conduction system of the heart. We know that the heart is mainly composed of 3 types of tissue. We have the conduction system, we have the fibrous tissue, and we have the myocytes, the muscle. So everything begins here with the conduction system, that is the one that conducts the electricity through the whole heart, so that it arrives to the myocytes and then it contracts. So the conduction system of the heart starts in the sinus node, that is roughly here, next to the entrance of the superior vena cava. Then from there the electrical impulse will go down through the myocardium of the atrium, and then we will finally arrive to the AV node, that is located in the inferior and posterior part of the right atrium. Here we have a bundle that is called the Bachmann bundle that will connect the right atrium with the left atrium. And then, because there is a lot of fibrous tissue here and here in the valves, in the atrioventricular valves, both in the tricuspid valve and in the mitral valve, the electrical impulse has to go through the AV node to go down to the ventricles. It will go through what it is called, I'm going to put in different color, the His bundle. The His bundle is located in the intraventricular septum. This His bundle will be divided into 2 branches. One is the right bundle branch that will go to the right ventricle. It will finish with the Purkinje fibers, and then we'll have the left bundle branch with the anterior fascicle and the posterior fascicle. It will finish with the Purkinje fibers. Then finally the impulse will arrive to the myocardium of the ventricle. So here we have the conduction system of the heart. So now what we are going to represent is the action potential of the heart. We know that there are mainly 2 types of cells in the heart. One is the myocytes, the myocardial cells, and the other ones are called the pacemaker cells. There is a difference between them because the myocardial cells are not able to initiate the action potential by themselves. They need either from another myocardial cell or a cell from the conduction system to be able to initiate the action potential. While the pacemaker cells, that are usually the cells that we have in the conduction system of the heart, either in the sinus node, the AV node, the His Purkinje system, they have a property that is called automatism. This property allows the cells to initiate automatically an action potential. So We are going to represent here the potential of the cell to be able to represent the action potential. So the cells usually have in steady state or basal position, they have what is a negative action potential, usually minus 85 millivolts. Okay, and this is because of what we are going to see here now. We are going to represent a cell of the heart. Doesn't matter whether it's a cell of the myocardial part or the conduction system. We will have here the interior part of the cell. We will have the exterior part of the cell. And usually the charge of the cell depends on the cations that we have in either part of the membrane. So, usually there are three cations that we have to take in account that are sodium, calcium, and potassium. When we talk about sodium, we know that there is a lot of sodium in the outside of the cell. And there is much less sodium in the inside of the cell. We know that there is a lot of calcium outside of the cell, and there is less calcium in the inside of the cell. With potassium, it's the opposite. So there is a lot of potassium inside the cell, and there is less potassium in the outside of the cell. We can see that we have many more positive charge in the outside of the cell rather than the inside. That is why usually in basal state, steady state position, we have a negative charge in the cell at the beginning of the action potential. So we must know that there are some channels. If we open a channel of sodium, the cations will go from following a gradient from the part where we have more cations to the part where we have less cations. So if we open, for example, a channel of sodium, the sodium will enter inside the cell. If we open a channel of calcium, the calcium will enter in the cell. But if we open a channel of potassium, because there is more potassium inside, the potassium will go out of the cell. Then we have other interchanges of cations in the cell. We have one that is called the sodium-potassium pump. It does the opposite of the channels. So it brings potassium in the cell and put sodium outside the cell, because this pump is doing right the opposite of the gradient. It needs energy, it needs ATP for function, while the other doesn't need. While we have another interchanger that is called the sodium and calcium interchanger. Usually it can work in both directions, but what it does is, if there is an accumulation of sodium inside the cell, it will bring sodium out of the cell and will put calcium inside the cell, depending on the concentration of each of the cations. So we are going to begin with the action potential of the myocardial cells. We know that those myocardial cells need from another input, another cell that brings them the voltage to initiate the action potential. So usually there are 5 stages, and we start with the phase 4, that is the resting phase, and then we're going to begin the phase 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Every time we go up in the graph, it means, because here we have 0, it means that we are depolarizing the cell. Meanwhile, when we go down in the graph, it means that we are repolarizing the cell, because the cells usually have a negative charge. So we start with phase 4. Phase 4, as we have told, is usually flat. Here, this phase 4, they need some stimulus to begin. If a stimulus comes, then the voltage will change, and then we can arrive to one threshold that we have here. There is one threshold around minus 70 millivolts. If we reach this threshold by some stimulus that comes from another cell, then it will begin what is called the phase 0. The phase 0, it is because we have that some sodium channels that are called the voltage gate sodium channels are going to open. So a lot of sodium will start entering in the cell and starting the depolarization of the cell. A lot of positive cations are entering. So we are going to begin phase 0. They are very fast, so the depolarization is very fast and is going to depolarize the cell. So to remember phase 0, we have to remember that the main character of this phase is sodium, the entrance of sodium. Then, when the cell reaches this positive charge, then it's going to begin the phase 1, the next phase. And it will happen because the sodium channels are going to close, and then another channels are going to open. The channels that are going to open, there are potassium channels. Those potassium channels that are called the ITO, the T because of transient, they are going to start the repolarization of the cell. Because they are going to open, a lot of potassium will go out of the cell. So they are going to start the repolarization of the cell. Up to here. Here we have, remember, phase, going to put in here, phase 1. Then, the beginning of phase 2, they are going to begin because some other channels are going to open. They are going to open calcium channels. So when the calcium channels open, then we have potassium going out of the cell and calcium going inside the cell. So it means that we are going to have like a plateau phase that is called the phase 2. In this phase 2, the main character is the calcium, and also the outwards of potassium that continues here. At these times, there is calcium entering the cell. We have also the sarcoplasmic reticulum here with calcium, that when it senses the calcium going in by the ryanodine receptors will bring more calcium inside the cell, and then this calcium will join to the troponin and myosin system and will start the contraction of the cell. So at this stage is the contraction of the cell. Then we are going to begin the next phase. In the next phase, both those potassium and calcium channels are going to close, and then new channels will open. They are going to be the potassium channels. All the potassium channels, different from those two, the transient one, those are called the delayed potassium channels. They are they are called I, S, and R. Okay? So, then lot of potassium will start going out of the cell. So, because there is no cation going in, we are going to start the repolarization of the cell. That is the phase 3. It's going to go down. Okay? And this is phase 3. We are going to go back to phase 4. That is the one that we had at the beginning. In this phase 4, those potassium channels are going to close, and then all the potassium channels will open, that are called the IL. Those are rapid potassium channels, and it's like a mechanism of defense in case some cations enter during this period, then potassium will go out, so it will avoid a new depolarization to begin before time. Okay, so we can divide this action potential in the depolarization of the cell, the time of the contraction of the cell, and the repolarization of the cell. During this period, that is from phase 0 to phase 3, the cell cannot receive new stimulus. It cannot depolarize again. It's another mechanism of defense. So, and this is what is called the refractory period, the effective refractory period. Nothing can excite the cell during this period. It can be divided in two. What is the absolute refractory period and the functional refractory period. During the absolute, nothing can stimulate the cell, and during the functional refractory period, if the stimulus is big enough, it could potentially initiate another repolarization. So, after that, we can go to the pacemaker cells. We're finished with the myocardial cells. The main difference is that they can initiate the depolarization by themselves. Why? We are going to see why. Here we are going to represent the action potential. So, first of all, they usually begin at minus 60 millivolts. They have less negative potential of the other. So they also have the action potential of the pacemaker cells is divided in 3 phases. We are not going to have phase 1. We are not going to have phase 2. We only have phase 4, phase 0, and phase 3. The resting one, the depolarization and repolarization. So, how are them? We are going to initiate this in the resting one, in the phase 4. In the phase 4, because we are already here in minus 60, we are not going to have the fast sodium channels open, because they are already closed. They open at minus 70 and we are already in minus 60. So we are going to start, instead of that, we have other channels that are called the IF channels. I'm going to put in red. The IF channels that also have sodium, could have a little bit of potassium too, and we also have calcium channels, both L type and T type. Okay, those channels are relatively slow. They are very slow. So what they do is that they put either sodium and calcium very slowly inside the cell. So they are performing like a very slow depolarization of the cell. So the cell is depolarizing very slowly, up to a new threshold that we have here. This threshold will be around minus 45, more or less, millivolts. If we reach this threshold here, we are going to begin the new phase. That is phase 0. In this phase 0, instead of sodium that we have here, the main character will be calcium. It will be calcium L-type channels. When they open, they start the depolarization of the cell, so it will go not as fast as this one, but it will go faster and will depolarize the cell. Here we have 0. And here it was called the phase 0. This phase 0 that will finish when the charge go above 0. Then what happened? That the calcium channels are going to close, and then new channels will open. Which ones? The same that we have here in the phase 3 of the myocardium. So potassium channels. So phase 3 have both these S and R potassium channels. And we are going to go back down to the resting position. So here we have phase 3. Then we are ready to start phase 4 again. Okay, we have to mention another thing before we continue, is that we have already mentioned what is the sodium and potassium pump. This pump allows us, because you have noticed that every time we do a depolarization and repolarization period, lot of sodium will go inside the cell, lot of potassium will go out of the cell. So we need something that balances the cations. Otherwise, in the end, all the potassium will finish in the outside of the cell and will balance, and there will be no gradients. And the same with the sodium. So there is something, and in this case we need energy for that during this phase 4, both here and here, is putting some potassium in and sodium out to make a balance, so that we could still have gradients from the inside to the outside of the cell. So we have also said that the pacemaker cells are able to fire themselves. So they can make pace, and it is just because they have this continuous entry of cations inside that slowly depolarize, and when they reach the threshold, they will initiate the depolarization. So which is going to be the characteristic that it will make these cells go faster, so that we can have a faster heart rate or slower. This is basically this slope. If we bring this slope up, we will have faster rhythm. If we bring this slope down, we will have slower rhythm. So we have to introduce another concept, that is the concept of overdrive suppression. The concept of overdrive suppression is that when we have, as we have here in the conduction system, different cells that have different intrinsic beats per minute or intrinsic cardiac frequency, the one that has the higher rate of firing is the one that will command. So usually when we have a normal conduction system, we are going to have that the sinus node is the one that is going to command, and the other one, the rest of the conduction system, will follow it. So how the body usually says the sinus node at which rate the heart should beat? Well, it's usually, we have different mechanisms, but one of them is the autonomous nervous system. So we know there is the autonomous nervous system that is divided into the sympathetic nervous system that is going to release, when it is enhanced, is going to release mainly noradrenaline. This noradrenaline is going to open these calcium and sodium channels. So it is going to bring, let's put it in another color, is going to bring this slope up. And then we are going to have higher heart rate. Meanwhile, we have another system that is the parasympathetic nervous system. When it acts, it is going to release acetylcholine, ACH. This ACH is going to do the opposite. It's going to close these calcium and sodium channels and will bring the potassium channels up. So it is going to do the opposite. It will decrease the slope. If we decrease the slope, okay, we are going to reach the threshold later, and we are going to have a slower heart rate. So, and how are we going to see it in the surface ECG? Okay, we know there was one normal beat. Everything will start here in the sinus node. Because of this, the sinus node is the one that has the highest heart rate, and because of the overdrive suppression phenomenon, it will be the one that will say when to begin. So we are going to see these cells are the one that says that we are going to initiate with the P wave. This impulse will go from the sinus node to the myocardium of the atrium. That is what we are going to see in the surface ECG with the P wave. Then the impulse will arrive to the AV node. In the AV node, usually it has some properties that delay for a while the impulse here. The purpose of this delay is that we will leave some time for the atrium to contract and to terminate to fill in the ventricles before the ventricles start to contract. So we will have this delay that is there, so that it will make us to have the PR interval, and then the impulse will arrive to the His-Purkinje system. So then it will start the depolarization of the myocardial cells of the ventricles, and we are going to see it as the QRS complex. QRS complex that we have here. Then the myocardial cells of the atrium are going to begin to repolarize. We are not going to be able to see them because this wave will be hidden inside the QRS complex. But we are going to be able to see the repolarization of the ventricles. How? We see it on the ST segment and the T wave. So there is a way for us to see the repolarization of the ventricle. So we can see that here in the myocardia, phase 0, that is the depolarization, we are going to be able to see it in this QRS complex. It's the depolarization, and we are going to have from phase 1 to phase 3, we have the repolarization that is from here to here. So all this complex from the Q wave to the T is the QT interval. This QT interval is actually reflecting this effective refractory period of the heart. It could be, so we will need it a lot to understand some of the syndromes that we have in cardiology, and also to understand how the anti-arrhythmic drugs work. So up to here we have finished what is the physiology part of the heart. We have covered the conduction system and also the action potential. Thank you.